The Feeling is the Secret by Neville Goddard. Chapter 1. A Moment of Doubt. Hannah sat at her desk in her small apartment, staring at the pile of bills in front of her. The pressure to meet deadlines at work, combined with her financial struggles, left her feeling overwhelmed and uncertain about her future. Every day seemed like an uphill battle. She had dreams, big dreams, but they felt so far out of reach. She longed to be financially free, to travel the world, to live a life of purpose, but all she could think about were the bills, the stress, and the looming sense of hopelessness. One night, after a particularly difficult day, she found herself scrolling through a social media post that caught her eye. The post was a quote from Neville Goddard's. "The feeling is the secret," that read, "Your feeling is the secret. What you feel within is what is reflected in your outer world." The quote stirred something within Hannah. She had heard of Neville Goddard before, but had never really delved into his work. She felt drawn to understand more. She immediately bought the book and began reading it late into the night, hoping it would provide the answers she was searching for. Chapter 2. The First Revelation. The Power of Feeling. The first chapter of The Feeling is the secret introduced Hannah to a concept that, though simple, felt revolutionary. The feeling you have about a situation, person, or goal is the key to manifesting it into your life, Neville Goddard emphasized. That it wasn't enough to just think about what you want or to speak affirmations. You must feel as though your desire has already been fulfilled. Hannah had always thought that if she worked hard enough or was just lucky, her dreams would come true. But Goddard's words changed that belief entirely. He explained that what you feel within yourself is what you attract in the outer world. If you feel lack, fear, or doubt, you attract more of those things. But if you feel abundance, success, and joy, that's what you'll draw into your life. For the first time, Hannah realized that she had been living in a state of constant worry and fear. She had always focused on the lack of money, lack of opportunities, and lack of time. This mindset had kept her stuck in a cycle of scarcity. After reflecting on Goddard's words, Hannah decided to take action. She would begin practicing what she now understood, to focus on feeling her way to success rather than just thinking about it. But how could she shift her feelings, especially when everything around her seemed to reinforce her worries? Chapter 3. The Second Lesson. Living in the Feeling of the Wish Fulfilled. The next chapter in The Feeling is The Secret Explained, a critical concept. Living in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Goddard taught that in order to manifest anything, you must feel as though it has already come to pass. You must align your thoughts and emotions with the end result, as if it has already happened. Hannah felt a mix of excitement and skepticism. How could she feel abundant when she was so far from being financially free? How could she feel successful when her job left her drained and her bank account was dwindling? But Goddard encouraged her to practice the art of imagination. He said that the key to manifesting anything is to enter a state where you imagine yourself already in possession of what you desire and feel it deeply. Hannah decided to take the leap. Every night before going to sleep, she closed her eyes and imagined herself in her dream scenario. She imagined waking up in a spacious home, walking to her laptop, and working on her passion projects. She felt the joy and excitement of helping others through her work, the freedom of having financial security, and the peace that came from knowing she had manifested this life herself. She imagined the warm sunlight streaming through the windows, the sense of accomplishment, and the happiness of living a life she had created. At first, it felt awkward, like pretending. But the more she practiced, the more real the feelings became. Slowly, she began to feel gratitude for the life she had envisioned, even though it had not yet materialized. Chapter 4. The Third Lesson, The Law of Assumption. As Hannah continued reading, Goddard introduced her to a powerful principle. The law of assumption. According to this law, you are not limited by your current reality. Instead, you can assume that your desires are already true, and by doing so, you align with the state that will bring those desires into your experience. Hannah realized that her constant doubts and worries about her financial situation were holding her back. She had been waiting for her circumstances to change in order to feel abundant. But what Goddard revealed was that it wasn't the external circumstances that created her feelings. It was her assumptions about those circumstances that created her experience. The key was to assume that everything she wanted was already hers. Rather than focusing on the bills or the lack of money, she started to assume that she was already living her dream life. She assumed that she had the wealth she desired, the freedom to travel, and the work she loved. One morning, as she walked to work, Hannah consciously told herself, "I am living the life I've always dreamed of. I am financially free. I am doing meaningful work that brings me joy." The more she practiced assuming that her desires were already fulfilled, the more she began to notice small changes around her. Her interactions with colleagues became more positive, and she started receiving more opportunities at work that aligned with her dreams. Chapter 5. The fourth lesson. The subconscious mind and its power. As Hannah delved deeper into the book, Goddard explained the pivotal role of the subconscious mind in manifestation. He described the subconscious as the part of the mind that holds our beliefs, emotions, and assumptions, and that it shapes the reality we experience. What we impress upon our subconscious mind, whether positive or negative, becomes our reality. Hannah realized that for most of her life, her subconscious mind had been filled with limiting beliefs. She had been taught to think small, to play it safe, and to accept mediocrity. These beliefs had governed her decisions, her actions, and ultimately her life. But now she understood that she had the power to reprogram her subconscious by consciously focusing on her desires, feelings, and assumptions. Goddard taught that the subconscious mind is especially receptive when you are in a relaxed state, right before you fall asleep, or when you are meditating. Hannah decided to take advantage of this powerful state. Every night, just before falling asleep, she would repeat affirmations that aligned with her dreams. "I am abundant. I am living my dream life. I am worthy of all the success the universe has to offer." Over time, these affirmations began to seep into her subconscious, and the more she believed them, the more she began to see shifts in her external reality. She became more confident in her decisions, more proactive in taking steps toward her goals, and less fearful of the unknown. Chapter 6. The fifth lesson. The power of sleep and the imagination. One of the most profound techniques that Goddard described was the use of sleep as a powerful tool for manifestation. When you are in a state of drowsiness or just before you fall asleep, your mind is in an ideal state for planting powerful thoughts and feelings into your subconscious. This technique would become the most transformative for Hannah. Before going to sleep each night, Hannah imagined herself already in possession of her dream life. She mentally walked through the details of her desired life, feeling the emotions of success, freedom, and happiness. She also imagined the exact scenes of her day-to-day life, as if it were already real. Her mind would often drift into sleep with these powerful feelings and images still vivid. During this time, Hannah would notice small, seemingly unrelated signs that things were beginning to shift. A friend would offer to help her with a business idea, or she would receive an unexpected refund that eased her financial stress. While these events didn't seem monumental, they were the beginning of the changes that she had been manifesting through her feelings and imagination. Chapter 7. The sixth lesson. Letting go of resistance. As Hannah progressed in her manifestation journey, she faced her biggest challenge yet: letting go of resistance. Goddard explained that resistance is the force that creates doubt and blocks the flow of manifestation. Resistance arises when we try to control the process or cling too tightly to the how of how things will unfold. Hannah had been practicing her visualization and affirmations, but sometimes she found herself slipping back into fear. What if it didn't work? What if she was just fooling herself? These questions were rooted in doubt, and they only created resistance. Goddard reminded her that faith in the process and trusting that the universe would handle the how were essential to manifesting her dreams. To combat this, Hannah learned to focus on feeling good in the present moment and letting go of expectations. When doubt crept in, she would reaffirm her trust in the process and return to focusing on the feelings of abundance and fulfillment that she wanted to manifest. Gradually, the resistance diminished as she embraced the certainty that her desires were already on their way. Chapter 8. The transformation. Months passed, and Hannah's life began to transform in ways she couldn't have imagined. She had paid off a significant portion of her debt, secured a freelance business opportunity in her field of interest, and even started planning her first solo trip abroad. What began as a simple practice of changing her thoughts and feelings had turned into a profound shift in her reality. Her life was no longer dictated by stress and struggle. The feeling that she was living her dream life became so natural that it was no longer an act of imagination. It was her truth. Every step she took was aligned with her goals, and opportunities flowed effortlessly toward her. She had learned that the secret to manifesting her dreams wasn't just thinking or speaking about them. It was feeling as though they were already true and believing in the power of her subconscious mind to bring them to life. She was no longer a passive observer of her life. She was its creator.